guys, what's up? I'm here to finally give y'all another video. I know it's been so long since I posted my last video, but I'm feeling much more up to filming, and yeah, I'm gonna film a bunch today. So let's get into it. Today I'm gonna do a nonfiction book haul. A lot of them were from the 50% off sale that Barnes & Noble had off of all hardcovers. That was just insane. I think I went like 3 times. That's how good the sale was, and they just kept extending it. So I was like, well, if you're gonna keep extending it, like, I'm gonna keep going. First book I want to show you is a book that almost got banned in France. This book is called I Hate Men by Pauline Harmange. She basically says like a lot of feminists and lesbians have been accused of being misandrist and just hating men, and like usually the instinct is to deny and say no, we don't hate men. But in this book, she argues that women have a lot of reasons to be mistrustful of men. And I did check to see if she was being trans exclusionary, and it didn't seem like she was. She was very specific in saying cis men. I don't know much about this author, but I am very interested in this book. This is a book that was gifted to me by a really close friend of mine. Thank you, Gabby. Belly of the Beast, The Politics of Anti-Fatness as Anti-Blackness by Deshawn L. Harrison. So this author, Deshawn Harrison, is fat, black, disabled, and trans. And basically in this book, they talk about how anti-fatness is the medium for which anti-blackness is expressed. Dear Centurion, a Black Spirit memoir by Akweke Emezi. It basically talks about the author's just experience as a non-binary African author. And if you know their books, you probably have heard of Vivek OG, Pet, Freshwater. So, I mean, I'm really familiar with their work. And they're also emo like I am. It's a really stigmatized thing in our culture. Like, it shouldn't be, but it is. I'm not saying it's exclusively like an African thing to be homophobic, but I am saying like it is an issue in our culture. So that's why I was super excited to really get into Emezi and get into this book specifically. This is a book that I haven't really heard much about, but it's If You Lived Here, You'd Be Famous by Now, True Stories from Calabasas by Via Blagner. I was attracted to this book because Emma Roberts has like an Instagram dedicated to book reviews called Beltrist, and she follows me on my book account. But anyway, so they were posting about this, and this is like basically stories from like LA Valley, and I have a lot of friends from the Valley because I went to UC Santa Barbara, and then I realized the author also went to UC Santa Barbara, so I was like, I bet you we have mutual friends. But basically it tells her story like growing up in like the Valley of LA, specifically Calabasas, and how, you know, like the Kardashians, like different celebrities like were a part of her high school experience and what it's like kind of growing up from that perspective. This is a book that I had never heard of before, but I saw the cover in the bookstore and I was like, that looks really interesting. Like, I guess it did its job. But the book is called Horror of New York, A Confession by Liara Rowe, I think. And basically they, in this book, talk about being a sex worker and their life up to that point. You know, obviously sex work has been very stigmatized. I'm not gonna say without reason. There's definitely reasons why someone might be like concerned about the gender dynamics in sex work, but it's definitely been over stigmatized because of religious sentiment. Nobody Knows My Name by James Baldwin is a book I picked up from the local bookstore. I just am really getting into James Baldwin's voice. Feels like everything James Baldwin said in the past is true today in a very like visceral contemporary way. It's basically thoughts on race in the United States. Feminist City, Claiming Space in a Man-Made World by Leslie Kern is a book I'm super excited to read. I wanted to read Feminist City because it really talks about how the city is meant to be like hostile to women. More than just catcalls, just the way the city's laid out. The lack of public transportation, the lack of like the ability for a woman to have a place where she can change her child. Like, you can't even breastfeed in public. Like, I like when like so-called neutral subjects take a gendered lens on, because I feel like gender is always like dismissed. Like, I don't know, like I'm really interested in like subjects like philosophy, political science, economics, architecture, like incorporating that like feminist gender lens. These next 2 books, bookclub.com sent to me for free, so thank you. How the Word is Passed, A Reckoning with the History of Slavery Across America by Clint Smith is a book that I saw on so many like best reads of 2021 lists. I just really want to read it. I mean, I think people often think like, I've read all I can about slavery, but there literally is so much we don't know. The Pain Gap, How Sexism and Racism in Healthcare Kill Women by Anusha Hossain. This is something that has also been of interest to me, especially as a Black woman, and I have sickle cell anemia, as many of you might know. The US comes from a history where Black women were thought to have less pain. Like, literally, we were supposed to be like resistant to pain, they thought. Coming from that kind of tradition, what does that mean for healthcare today? This book, I'm kind of nervous about. I don't think that this author is going to say anything that's going to make me view her position any better than I already don't. But basically this book is Gentrifier, a memoir by Anne Elizabeth Moore. Basically, she tells her story of being a gentrifying white woman in Detroit. Detroit is a majority black city, and specifically this author moves into a traditionally Bangladesh neighborhood. The next book is Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism by Amanda Montell. This book has literally been everywhere. I've heard very mixed reviews on this book, to be honest with you guys. I've heard some people be like, this book is awesome, like I learned so much. And I've heard people be like, I did not learn anything new from this book. But basically, she's trying to argue that we kind of view cults as like something only people who are weak-minded and easily brainwashed get into. But her argument is that the language of cults, like this idea of like, you're a part of us, like this is you, like this kind of like all-consuming language of community is present in a lot of spaces, from fitness to branding to a lot of things, to corporate, spaces where the company tries to make you feel like you're one of the family. This could be a hit or a miss, but I think the premise is interesting enough, so I bought it. So this is another book that bookclub.com sent me. White Feminism by Koa Beck. And honestly, this is not a book I would purchase on my own. I don't really want to hear any more takes on white feminism. We get it. White women's feminism is not inclusive. I rather books by women of color talk about what our feminisms look like as women of color rather than critiquing white feminism. So it's kind of annoying that so many publishers are greenlighting all this work, but I got it for free. So I am going to read it and share my take. But yeah, generally I don't care about like white feminist critiques, because like we know it's not inclusive. Like what's next? What's new? The Loneliest Americans by J. Caspian Kang is a book that I'm so excited to read. This is probably the book I'm most excited to read. And this book basically talks about Asian American identity and how like it tries to basically create a conglomerate of too many identities that don't really have anything in common. So, but I have heard a lot of critiques from Asian Americans on Bookstagram that feel like this book is kind of condescending to Asian American immigrants. So, but I do want to like see what's up with this book because I feel like I might agree with some stuff. So yeah. Admissions, a memoir of surviving boarding school by Kendra James is a book that was sent to me by the publisher. And she basically talks about how isolating it was, obviously as a black person in like an all-white prestigious school. And definitely I'm sure like if you're black and you went to a nice school, you've heard things like, well, you didn't deserve your spot, or affirmative action is why you got there. So I'm sure, she heard stuff like that. So the next book is Power Hungry, Women of the Black Panther Party and Freedom Summer and Their Fight to Feed a Movement by Suzanne Cope. This is basically talking about the Black Panther Party, specifically the women. And the Black Panther Party, they are really impactful. Like, if you really look in their history, it's not just about like armed struggle. Like obviously that's very important, and that's important. Like I'm not trying to say like it wasn't about that. Like a lot of people, again, I feel like people just they kind of romanticize the revolution without seeing the way that revolution was both destruction and creation. So one of the things the Black Panther Party did was test for sickle cell. Another thing they would do is give out lunches, especially to kids who didn't have food, and that's kind of what inspired the whole like free lunches program that we have across the United States. Is a group of black people in Oakland by the name of Black Panther Party, like saying people deserve to eat. Becoming Abolitionists, Police Protests and the Pursuit of Freedom by Derricka Purnell is a book I am so excited to read. Derricka Purnell is a black attorney. She knows what she's talking about when she says like police and prisons don't protect us. And I'm really excited to read her perspective. So, and I'm a student of abolition. I really want to learn more about it. I think it's an interesting idea, and it might be the idea that we need to embrace in order to stop police brutality. Okay, last but definitely not least is Beautiful Country by Chen Julie Wang. And this book is a book that there's a lot of immigrant stories coming out. Not all of them I'm going to read, okay? I am the daughter of immigrants, but some of these stories are just so like, America's perfect, we were saved by America, and no. But this book is really nuanced in that basically she talks about her parents being Chinese immigrants, and when they were in China, they were very well-respected professors. They came here and they lost a lot. Obviously they got to raise their, children in the United States for what that's worth, but they were impoverished, loneliness that you feel as being an immigrant. And I just like that this book takes a very nuanced view on immigration. Also, the author's a lawyer too. This book felt very different from all the immigrant stories coming out. But yeah, those are all the books that I got. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I will be filming my wrap up tomorrow, I think, of all the books I read in January. I'm going to be more consistent with that. I'm also going to be more consistent with anticipated books releases, so I plan to film one for February. But thank you guys for rocking with me. You know, sometimes I get in a little depression funk, but I'm back. I'm like really back. So yeah, but thank you and bye.